and welcome back to the most amazing channel on the internet. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today I'm talking about the top 10 scary warnings from the past. Have we always listened? Spoiler, the answer is no. Before we get into this video, I just want to ask you guys what you would say to your future self. It's really difficult actually being a past self. I could think of loads of things I could say to young me, but to future me, just like, carry on babe. While you're down there, why don't you guys leave a thumbs up and share this video with a friend. Also, if you guys want to connect with me on social media, the link to my Instagram is in the description box. Alright, past. What have you got to tell us? Coming in at number 10, we have the prediction of World War III. A lot of mystics have predicted a third world war, including perhaps the most infamous of them all, Nostradamus. Nostradamus was a 16th century French apothecary and seer. He is best known for his book Les Prophéties. The chap is thought to have predicted the Great Fire of London, the rise of Hitler, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the moon landing, and 9/11. It is also said that he predicted both of the world wars, and, wait for it, the Third World War. The Frenchman warned that, and I quote, "The big war will start in France and all Europe will be attacked. It will be long and terrifying for everyone, and then finally there'll be peace, but only few will enjoy it." He says World War III will last 27 years. When will it start? 2018, apparently. Great. Oh, and he also warned that there'd be a horrible earthquake and a volcanic eruption this year. We'll get back to that one later. Both more tangible and practical than Nostradamus' warning, we have a well-meaning warning from ancient Japanese people that has largely been ignored. Coming into number 9, we have the tsunami stones. Some things aren't written in stone, but these ancient warnings were. Still, some people chose to ignore them, leading to thousands of deaths. Japan is amid 4 tectonic plates, making it extremely vulnerable to natural disaster. Japan has a huge coastline, and when earthquakes happen in the ocean, they generate tsunamis. Hundreds of tsunami stones dot the coast of Japan, dating back over centuries. Now, these stones warn future generations where not to build in case of disaster. One stone reads, "High dwellings are the peace and harmony of our descendants. Remember the calamity of our great tsunamis. Do not build any homes below this point." Pretty loud and clear, right? While some of Japan's historic disasters may have gone undocumented, these stones speak volumes as to the devastation they must have caused. Residents of Aniyoshi heeded their ancestors' warnings and never built below the stones. They were fine in the tsunami. Sadly, a lot of developers ignored the ancient warnings around the coast, especially during the social boom years following World War II. Thinking that seawalls and modern tech was enough to save them, many built below the stones. And don't say they didn't warn you, because none of these settlements survived the 2011 tsunami. This tsunami was totally devastating, and it is estimated that over 20,000 people died. Next up, we have a warning from the past and present that will one day very much affect our future. Coming in at number 8, we have the imminent eruption of Yellowstone. Remember what Nostradamus said? Well, think about that when we talk about Yellowstone. The Yellowstone volcano is a supervolcano waiting to blow. The information isn't anything new. Scientists have been warning people for years. Now, the last time the volcano erupted was 6,400 years ago, roughly 6,400 years after its previous explosion. Notice the pattern there? Honey is due. If and when this supervolcano blows, it will be devastating for almost the entirety of the United States and parts of Canada. The ash would fall as far as Washington, D.C. and Toronto. Salt Lake City, Denver, and Casper are total goners. Things wouldn't be looking great in Albuquerque, Kansas City, or San Francisco either. Now, the volcanic ash would be the main issue, choking people and devastating agriculture whilst polluting water supplies. While we know about the volcano, for some reason, cities keep being developed within the immediate destruction zone. The same thing actually goes for Italy. Remember Pompeii and the disaster that happened back then? Romans kept on building around Vesuvius. Nostradamus had a few terse words about that too. Coming in at number 7, we have a climate warning from 1847. George Perkins Marsh, a Vermont congressman and America's first environmentalist, predicted the horrors of climate change a long time ago. In mid-19th century language that's slightly turgid to our modern ears, Marsh basically warned that if we keep on burning fossil fuels and messing with natural environments, like with swamp draining and deforestation, we would screw over ourselves in the future. In a speech delivered to the Agricultural Society of Rutland County, Marsh acknowledged the effect human actions was having on the climate across the world. So his observations were way back in 1847, 171 years ago. Things have only accelerated over the past nearly 2 centuries, with humans burning more fuel and farming more animals and cutting down more trees than ever. Marsh, a revered scholar and writer who studied his whole life and spoke over 20 languages, was largely ignored in his lifetime. Although more and more people are awakening to the perils of climate change, his warning is still not totally heeded today. Around 15,000 scientists have agreed that we are already past the point of no return when it comes to climate change. So sad at number 6, we have the warning of a cockpit catastrophe. A lot of the warnings or predictions, as you may consider them to be, came decades or more before the disasters they could avert, but this eerie warning came just 2 months before 150 people were murdered. Dutch pilot Jan Crocheret, a captain for Emirates Airline, wrote an article for a specialist flight magazine, Pilot and Plane. Now, this article came in early 2015, 2 months before co-pilot Andreas Lubitz plunged Germanwings Flight 9525 into the French Alps. Jan wrote of the perils of the internal locking cockpit, which were installed as a safety measure following 9/11. Now, the doors are bulletproof and work so that nobody can storm a cockpit and hijack a plane ever. However, in this article, Crocheret speculated that this could be abused by a corrupt co-pilot. He wrote how you never know who you're sitting next to, you never know what they're thinking and what they're feeling. He said that he feared that one day he could go to the toilet and his co-pilot could lock him out of the cockpit. He wrote that there's little choice then but to go to the passengers and sit and wait to see what the future brings. Now, really sadly, this is exactly what happened with the Germanwings flight. Lubitz locked Captain Patrick Sonderheim out and convinced him to use the toilet. He couldn't get back in, then he crashed the plane. Coming in at number 5, we have the ice sheet collapse. 50 years ago, there was a lot going on in the world. The US and the USSR were embroiled in the Cold War. Also, there was a space race going on, keeping headlines occupied. However, in 1968, American glaciologist John Mercer was studying the ice sheet in Antarctica. He wrote a paper calling the West Antarctic ice sheet vulnerable and unstable, warning that it was melting and as a result, sea levels were rising. Ignoring this warning for decades until new studies did conclude the same thing, scientists are now scratching their heads at what they can actually do about it. The ice sheet holds enough water to raise global sea levels by 3 meters, which when you think about how much water there already is on Earth is a lot. Mercer discussed the rate at which the ice was melting, which has now more than doubled, so the ice is melting faster than ever. As we keep on burning fossil fuels and prioritizing beef production, this temperature of the world is continuing to rise. Yeah, we would be in trouble if the West Antarctic sheet melted, but if all of the ice caps melted, well, this is what the United States would look like. There again, we have Europe, Asia, and Australia. As you can see, things aren't looking great. Now, this warning was one of the reasons the Paris Agreement of 2015 was drawn up, which commits the world to limiting warming by just 1.5 to 2 degrees. Now, unfortunately, President Trump wants to withdraw from this agreement. I don't know about you, but losing the world's most famous cities to the ocean is a pretty scary thought, especially when we've been warned about it. Coming into number 4, we have asbestos and the death of millions. So what is asbestos? It is a naturally occurring fibrous mineral that is known for its strength and resistance to fire. Sadly, as good as it seems for insulation, inhalation of its fibers causes cancer. Asbestos began being used in homes and businesses in the 20th century, becoming wildly popular. Concern about asbestos emerged in the 1930s, but a 1938 report that proved death by the product was airborne was ignored and then buried. Despite health warnings, it was continually used as insulation up until it was banned in the 1980s. Even now, 125 million people in the world are exposed to asbestos in the workplace. Now, shockingly, up until recently, the only places to fully ban the killer substance were Japan and Europe. Canada only banned it in 2018 and is still in use in the USA. It is thought that the substance kills between 12,000 to 15,000 Americans each year, and you know what? The warnings have been there for decades. Coming into number 3, we have Europe the wasteland and America the broken. We can't do a list about scary messages from the past and not include the biggest super creep of them all, Baba Vanga. And actually, this isn't the last time you're going to hear about her, so keep listening. Baba conked it in 1996, but is still freaking people out with her scary warnings, and actually, they're starting to come true. Firstly, she predicted the breakup of the Soviet Union, the Chernobyl disaster, and the 9/11 attacks, and she predicted that the 44th president of the United States would be black. So this is what she had to say about Europe and America. Baba V predicted the rise of Vladimir Putin. She predicted that a nuclear war will break out and that Europe will be the hardest hit. She said that the most people will abandon Europe and nuclear fallout will give most inhabitants skin cancer. She also predicted that by 2043 a Muslim caliphate would be established in Rome following years of war. Regarding the United States, she said that the 45th president would be the last ever prez, so things aren't looking great for Trump. She also said that he would divide the North and South and ultimately bring down the country. Thanks for that, Babs. You're always a ray of sunshine. Alright, next up we have one of the biggest historical warnings of all time. We have the Nazis at number 2. The rise of Adolf Hitler, his manipulation of the National Socialist German Worker Party, his establishment of a dictatorship in the Third Reich is one of the most historically interesting and devastating things to ever happen to humanity. The way Hitler managed to harbour social disquiet as political fuel, brainwash a nation, and enact ethnic cleansing was disgustingly artful and should serve as the biggest warning in social history that evil doesn't always arrive to you dressed as the devil, but often as a confident figure offering a better future. The rise of Adolf Hitler should have taught us to pay very close attention when a human both charms, cheats, and bullies their way to the top, manipulates the media, and singles out a race or religion for persecution. Did we learn our lessons from Hitler's Anschluss of Austria? If so, shouldn't Vladimir Putin's annexation of Crimea be a red light? Should China's one-party state worry us? Should we worry about Trump inviting only preferred news publications to his press conferences? Should we be worried about asking to present our social media passwords to custom officials? And should we be worried about Kim Jong-un? It isn't necessarily the Nazi years that should be the warning to us. It is the years of discontent leading up to the Third Reich that are a particular concern here. A 1997 BBC documentary film series called The Nazis: A Warning from History was released, and honestly, it is such a good watch. Nazis and World War II destroyed a lot, but imagine what a modern-day Hitler could do with nuclear weapons. Warning! Warning. Okay, we of course need to end this list with some classic Baba Vags and her warnings that, you know, she's got for the future and the end of the Earth and the universe. That's right, coming into number 1, the end of the Earth will come in 2341. Mate, according to Babs, it is literally all to come. From 2033 to 45, the polar ice caps are gonna melt, but then cloning's gonna happen and disease will be cured. But don't celebrate too soon because the US will fight the Muslims in Rome using freezeways. Like, actually, that sounds pretty cool. In 2256, Mars will demand independence, and something terrible will be found in the galaxy as we search for further alien life. We will master time travel in 2304, but sadly a series of man-made disasters will destroy the Earth once and for all in 2341. Vanga warns that humanity will escape to another solar system, but resources will be scarce, which will lead to more war. She then predicts another dark age in 3815, which ends in 3878, and really, it's all just numbers now. By the year 4674, humans and aliens will have started breeding with a universal population of 340 billion. Sadly though, the universe party is all over in the year 5079, or so she warns. Bit of a buzzkill, isn't she? Dinosaurs walked the Earth for 165 million years, but humans have what, 23,000 years on Earth, then 2,000 more in space, and then it's all over. Can these warnings and predictions be changed if we play nice? That's the question on everyone's lips. So guys, that was the top 10 scary warnings from the past. What did you think to this list? Should we heed some of these warnings? Are they gonna come true? Let me know in the comments section down below. But for now, I think it's time we get out of here and just, you know, make better choices. I'm your host, Rebecca Felgate. If you want to give this video a good thumbs up and share it with a friend, I will literally love you forever.